Hey Trenders, it's Justin A.Williams from the Trend with Justin A.Williams podcast. Now I've got some good news for you, something that'd be really helpful. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Sounds awesome. You can make money from your podcast as well with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Trenders, I know you guys like to do a lot of different things. You guys are interested in a lot of different things. This is a great way to get your podcast off the ground. I know for me personally, it's helped me tremendously. So go ahead. Go to, again, anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app and have a ball. All right. See you around, Trenders. Good day. Welcome to The Trendy Place. This is The Trend Podcast with Justin A. Williams, and you are in a place where we share exciting information and topics from all across the spectrum. Excited to have you with us this week. Remember, just as a disclaimer, the views expressed today are not the views of New York Trend Media. They're the views of the guests, and we are a conversation, a place of dialogue, no more, no less. All right, Trenders, how's everybody going? How's everybody doing in life? What's going on? I mean, big things are happening in the world in terms of geopolitical politics. I know we talked about that sometimes on the pod, but today what we have is, honestly, it's an honor to be with Lamar Wilson of Black Bitcoin Billionaire. You've definitely heard of him, and if you haven't, you will. We are excited to have you on the podcast today because we got to talk about Bitcoin. I know a lot of people talk about a lot of different cryptos, but I feel like sometimes the conversation isn't focused enough, and I think sometimes what we really want to do is we want to assess, what's really going to be the major player in the market coming up in the next couple of years, as it already has been. And if you don't know about Bitcoin, hopefully by the end of this episode, you will definitely feel more confident and want to invest. I think that's the goal of all of us here in the community. I'm a crypto investor and advisor. And so I'm going to kick it to Big Marh, Lamar Wilson. How's it going, brother?
Hey, what's going on, Justin? How you been, man?
I like the polo shirt look.
Oh, man, that's all I ever keep. Everybody knows me for polo shirts, even all the way back to college, man. I always rock polo shirts. It's just what I do. I'll be buttoning them all the way up. I might pop the collar, you know what I mean? It's whatever, man. I just get busy, man.
When I was in college, kids used to do the triple pop. They had 3 different polos of 3 different colors all popped up.
Yeah, man. I just always rock the polos, man. That's just how I always got down. It's always usually bright colors, too. I just like bright color polos.
I credit 2 great leaders in the polo community: Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and then Kanye West. He really brought that, that button-up look.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We was rocking polos before Ye. So Ye got it from us. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah. All right. So tell me a little bit about yourself, like how you got started in the Bitcoin business. What shaped Big Marh? What got you excited about it, and then what made you feel like, okay, I think I have expertise in this. I want to start, advising and advocating for it.
Right. As a born rebel, like I'm always a rebellious dude, man. I've always been my whole life. I've always been very focused on freedom. And some of my biggest heroes are abolitionists, the people like Harriet Tubman, the Nat Turners of the world, Frederick Douglass.
Yes, Harry Beecher Stowe,
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So John Brown. So those
John Brown. Well, you're from Kentucky, right?
Yeah, I'm from Kentucky, man.
Okay.
So yeah, like a lot of those cats, just when I used to read about them, they always made me probably made me the most wanting to be like them, because what they did was they cared about others more than themselves, right? You got to think about it. Somebody like Harriet Tubman, she got away to freedom, and she could have just stayed there and been free. But now she turned back around and went and got others. Frederick Douglass, same thing, right? He became free. And then guess what? Turned back around and try to always fight for everybody else's freedom. And so I always thought that was very noble. I'm a Christian as well, so we got Jesus in there as well.
Sure.
But it's just always about freedom for me. And so when I got into the space, I taught myself to be a software developer and started building like all kinds of apps and stuff. And, it kind of leads you down a path towards trying to get VC. So I went to go get VC funding in the Valley, and it really was in San Francisco where I met the guy. And he looked at our game platform we had built, was like, I see you got a virtual currency in here. Have you heard of Bitcoin? And I thought he said big coin. And and I was like, no, he ain't heard of it. We get outside. My business partner, he looks down at his phone. He's like, Lamar, I think he said Bitcoin. And he shows me on his phone. And I was like, I ain't got nothing to do with what we doing. You know how you are when you're trying to build something. You think we got to stay focused on what we're building. We're going to make $1 billion. And so I left it alone. And then a year later, probably, I saw a headline that was like, Bitcoin reaches all-time high. And I was like, oh, that's that Bitcoin thing again. So let me go look at it. Well, this is when it got to me because I read the white paper. And the first thing I saw was freedom. And just like with Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and those things spoke to me. When I saw Bitcoin, I was like, I'm a software developer. And right now, if I wanted to, I couldn't program something into my money at my bank account. Like I couldn't they wouldn't give me APIs to be able to move my money wherever I want to anywhere in the world.
Right.
So that really intrigued me a lot. And I have a finance degree and I'm a software developer by trade. So it's like the perfect marriage, right, of those two disciplines. So I got into it and I was like, I got to build something for this. I literally stayed up that whole night when I saw that headline. I mean, literally all night. Called my business partner in the morning. He was like, man, I had a dream about Bitcoin last night. I was like, hey, man. And I told him, I said, look, man, you got to focus on what we have, our business. And I'm going to just take off on this Bitcoin thing. And he provided me the grace to do so, man. So shout out to him for that. But I mean, from that point, I wound up building a wallet called the Fever wallet, man.
Okay.
And yeah, it kind of got a little cult following because at the time when I finally launched it, we were the only wallet you could get on iOS because we had a different way to get it on your app. Onto your phone because Apple had banned all Bitcoin wallets. And so the way we were able to get it on your phone kind of changed everything. It kind of got me. That was my first foray. Me and my man Leif. That was our first foray into the Bitcoin space, and people starting to recognize who we were. So
that's amazing. I mean, Bitcoin, I think, back then was something where I consider it like the cell phone. 20 years later, it's going to seem like, how could you not invest in that? How could that not be a good idea? But at the time in the beginning, even some of the big heavyweights in the industry, Kevin O'Leary, another guy, no, we don't want to mess with big. And Michael Saylor, right? Totally don't want to mess with Bitcoin. Yeah. Now they're all about it. They got the glowing eyes on Twitter. They're doing the whole thing. So tell me, how is Bitcoin a measure of freedom? Because I want to get into a discussion a little bit about like equity for people who maybe are not as financially empowered as other people, right?
Oh, man, good question. It's a really good question. I talk about this a lot. The democratization of information was huge, right? People don't understand that information a lot of times was held in the hands of those that had money and power. They kept libraries, they kept all the information, any studies of sciences and religion and all of these other things, they were always behind walls and gates. And so a lot of the everyday person couldn't have access to it. And of course, the printing press helped out a lot. You know what I'm saying? So printing press helped out a lot and it made it a little bit more democratized. But then what happened was they started cutting those off from people as well. And you just keep moving forward and you realize like the internet and the democratization of information allowed a cat like me, who is in Lexington, Kentucky, on the northwest side, right, which is considered, it's not always considered the best side of town, right? But it allowed me to be able to basically like teach myself about cryptography, about Bitcoin and everything else, and even programming in this of itself. And because I had access to that information, it allowed me to change my entire trajectory career-wise.
Yes.
Right. So that's what happens with information. What happens when you democratize money? Right? What happens when you make it available to everybody, everywhere? They don't have to have a certain ID. They don't have to have a certain amount. They actually can go and get it with whatever they have. And and they don't need it. Nobody can tell them where they can keep it or send it or anything. That right there to me is a very powerful thought, right? Because the same way that like the democratization of information empowered me individually because I took control of it, things like Bitcoin are just really Bitcoin itself is going to empower a lot of individuals who don't have access to the current monetary system. And that is extremely, extremely powerful. And it also provides an asset for people who don't have access to the common wealth building assets of the world. When you talk about, because I was even thinking about this the other day. I was like, yeah, Robinhood and Cash App and all these other small brokerages, micro brokerages exist. But the problem is that you still a lot of times have to have a bank account. Now, shout out to Cash App for allowing you to go to Walgreens and put cash into Cash App and then you can buy stocks with it. But a lot of these places,
that's right.
Yeah, right. A lot of these places require you to have a bank account to even interface with them as well. So what if you're unbanked? You don't have access to these assets. Whereas in Bitcoin, you can literally go get a wallet and meet somebody on the street and get some Bitcoin. That is powerful. That empowers people to actually participate. And I think that's why, from the freedom standpoint, that's what makes you completely free, because you don't have to go through any of these gatekeepers that have historically kept people that look like me and you out of it, right? You don't have to worry about the gatekeepers at all. A lot of times, even that anxiety stops people from even going to get a bank account because they think, I don't have it. I don't have the credit. I don't have the right. And it's like, now you can say, this is wide open to anybody. This democratizes that, and that's powerful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I love that word, democratization. I mean, I think not enough people are very confident in our democracy today. I think there's so many people that are, I think in a lot of ways, you find this on the right and the left, right? I mean, I think in the 60s and 70s, the counterculture revolution was a lot of liberals. And now it seems like some different kind of strange conservative counterculture is emerging too. But both sides, some people, maybe more on the right, are saying, let's decentralize. So a lot of people are saying decentralize governments altogether, but some people are saying, no, maybe this is more about financial power. Let's take, did you see One Night in Miami?
One Night in Miami. Oh, yeah. What everybody, it was awesome.
So what I really loved about that movie was Sam Cooke. They really expressed Sam Cooke's financial model for success in the Black community, and really success for any community that's trying to get above oppression, historical oppression. So that could be Jewish people, that could be LGBTQIA, all that. And what Sam Cooke was saying was that, look, Malcolm, you go protest, you say great words, right? But look what I'm doing on the low that they don't even notice. That's having an effect. I own all my masters. I own all my music. And when I write a song, the Beatles may sing it, and those are white kids singing it, but you know who's getting most of the royalties? That's me, and they don't even know. And that's the best way to make money, is they don't even know you have it. Don't even show it, right? And I think Bitcoin is a great opportunity because it's freedom in a way that's not regulated like fiat money or like gold or like cash, where there's a check and a bank and an IRS and all these things that can interfere with your process. Do you think that there's validity to the barrier people talk about with the blockchain, right? When people say, I don't understand what blockchain is, I don't get it. How does that make my money effective? How does that keep me safe? What would you say to someone who says, can you give me a pitch for blockchain in like 2 minutes, 5 minutes?
Yeah. So what was we talking about?
Yeah. So for our audience, we kind of got some technical difficulties, but basically my question was, with the blockchain technology.
Explain it. I'm sorry. Explain it. So really quickly, in the terms of a bank, right? If you keep your money at a bank, there's one central ledger. There's one singular ledger at the bank. The bank is the one that tells everybody what they have in terms of their balance in the bank. Sure. That right there creates a single point of failure, because if anything ever happens to the bank, same thing that kind of happened but people don't think about it that far out. But in Black Wall Street, when the banks and everything got burned down, the ledgers went along with them. And those people still to this day still haven't gotten their insurance, right, from the FDIC type stuff that they were supposed to get. Or they haven't gotten insurance from regular insurance. So when you burn down the ledger, right, you have to trust that individual to keep it. But what happens in a decentralized system like a true blockchain, right? When you have a decentralized blockchain, what happens is number one, the information is immutable. Number two, it's decentralized. So every person that participates in that chain actually has a copy of that ledger. So let's say one singular entity goes down, the rest of the other ones can get another one can pop up, and the rest of the other ones can sync it up to it, which makes it very anti-fragile. That's what truly decentralized systems become. They become anti-fragile. They cannot be broken. And that is powerful, especially for your money. So imagine you having the ability to watch the ledger for yourself, to move money for yourself, that is extremely, extremely powerful. And I think people take it for granted until something like a Black Wall Street happens, or something like what's going on in Ukraine happens. Those people woke up in the morning and found out they were being invaded. Right? Everything is not a big deal until it happens, but when it happens, it's too late. Yeah. So that's why just creating those types of mechanisms for empowerment right now for the individual, and the individual have sovereignty, I think is a very powerful, powerful thing, man.
Yeah, and I also think as an investor, you don't always have to be an absolute expert on every single aspect of what you're investing in. I think to have a good summation of what's going on and to be confident that from based on your knowledge and what other people are saying, that this is clearly working for a lot of people. And I mean, and in times of crisis, that's when really money really matters, right? Like when you need to pay for your healthcare in some way, a health scare or a car accident or something like that. That's when you say, okay, I need my money right now. I need it really quickly. And I also need it in a way where it's not going to break apart. I mean, I'm just so impressed by what's happening in Ukraine with the first of all, they as soon as the war was about to happen, they adopted Bitcoin and cryptocurrency legally in their country.
Did you see that guy who bought a car with Bitcoin?
No.
So there was this news crew. They couldn't get out of the Ukraine. And of course, you couldn't get cash out. And so they needed a vehicle. And so one of the guys accepted Bitcoin he sold his whole Audi for Bitcoin.
Oh, wow.
And so they were able to use that car, use the Bitcoin they had, go get some gas and get to the border.
Is that the first of its kind? That's got to be the first of its kind.
No, there's other people that have bought cars with Bitcoin. But in that type of situation, man.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, you know, there's like assumed value and then there's actual value. And people always like to say, well, gold has actual value because it's hard. I can hold it. You know, I know it's there. And I would say to that person that actually it doesn't have that. It has a perceived value based off of either its application as to help with technologies, it's a great conductor, or in scarcity, that there's just not a lot of gold. But I am of the opinion that Bitcoin is valuable beyond just being scarce.
Right. That's me too, man. Because here's the difference, right? Everybody on the financial side, they're trying to figure out a way to make Bitcoin worth more in terms of dollars. And so the way that happens is you're looking at price. If you're looking at price, it's got to be priced in some other asset so that you can actually have a measuring stick, and then that becomes dollars. And so therefore, when you hear people talk about it, it's like in the future, your Bitcoin is going to be worth this much dollars. And so scarcity, of course, because most people don't understand, scarcity is not just a function of supply. It's a function of supply and demand. And so, of course, increased scarcity, of course, will increase prices over time. It's just basic economics. So people who focus on the financial side of it in dollars, they're going to always talk about scarcity. For me, I talk about it from the freedom standpoint, and that's why it's so much more valuable to me than the dollars that you see on it, because one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, and that's extremely powerful from the very reasons I said before. Like the fact that I don't have to be in a system that is manipulated by government entities and people that change their mind every once in a while, want to change how much they put in the system, how much they take away. And I know for a fact how many coins are going to be distributed in a day based on code. That changes everything. It gives you a certain amount of stability within a world that is full of chaos. And so that's why that's extremely valuable, to know that you have this rock in that world of chaos that allows you to go, okay, I know what that's going to be. Over here, we have no clue. Governments, people attack each other all the time. At the end of the day, that Bitcoin that guy used in the Ukraine, whatever the Ukrainian currency was at the time, or even Russian rubles were at the time, did not matter, because that guy said, this car is worth this many Bitcoin, let's go. Yeah. Right? That's a powerful thing. And it didn't matter, because that could have happened in Nigeria. It didn't have to happen in Ukraine. It could have happened in Brooklyn, right? It could have happened literally, right? You know what I mean? So that's what's freaking powerful to me, is that can happen all over the globe. Right. And once we get to that level, now all of a sudden our money, just like with information, is outside of the realm of people trying to control it. Like you can do what you want all over the globe. That's powerful.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way to put it. I mean, that's so true. I think you mentioned the global aspect of this. I mean, look at what has happened to really set up some formerly colonized countries that we in the Western world call third world, right? That we don't like to admit have been thoroughly damaged by colonialism. And now I've had to catch up in a way where the World Bank has basically enslaved some of these countries. I mean, look at how Jamaica and Argentina are basically at the whim of the World Bank. What Bitcoin, what El Salvador is doing, and what you see in some places in Africa too, is this starting to see some leveling of the playing field, right? Like they're investing in this currency.
Right.
And look at the GDP of El Salvador. I think it improved by like a whopping amount of percent. I mean, we're talking about like a 120% improvement in GDP just from 1 year of having Bitcoin currency and other cryptos. I even think they might pick up Shiba Inu, which which would be like crazy, right? And I as someone who has interacted with all types of people, feel as though anybody with even a little bit of cash, I mean, we're talking about even $5, right? You make this point a lot. You made it on the Breakfast Club when you were interviewed by them. Shout out to them. You said if you could own a little piece of Manhattan, let's say back in the 70s, right? Donald Trump, he bought the Continental Building for $1. $1, right? And he turned the most ugly, dilapidated real estate that was also the biggest real estate, so had the biggest potential, into a multi-billion-dollar empire.
Yeah, right.
So if you can have a piece in New York at that time, who cares if it's $5? Who cares if it's $1? In the future, that's going to be exponentially greater. But do you think not enough people really have that kind of foresight?
They don't, because most people have low time preference. Yeah. I mean, high time preference, excuse me.
Yes.
They want their money now, right? They want to see it flip quickly because they are. The truth is what I believe is that most people have already spent the money they don't have before they get it. Right?
Yeah.
And so they want to spend it faster. So in their mind, they've already spent it on the jet, the Birkin bag, the Jordans, the whatever. And so in there are the house, the Bentley, right? All these things. They've already spent it in their mind. And so they're only thinking about how fast can I get it? How fast can I get it? How fast can I get it?
Yeah.
Right? Instead of realizing that all of those things, the moment you get them, they start, it's maybe not a Birkin bag, but some of this, you know what I mean? Because that's a collectible type thing. But most of the stuff that you're thinking in your mind, as soon as you get it, it starts losing value. Right? As soon as you get it. Manhattan, as soon as you got that land in the 1970s, it probably didn't immediately start losing value. Matter of fact, if you had land in Manhattan, it probably has been gaining value over time for a very long time. Right? Yeah. And so that's a different mentality. Because what happens is that people don't look forward and go, okay, I can get the one Birkin bag now, or I can wait 20 years where I can buy 5,000 Birkin bags if I want them, right? Like it's the mentality between that, because you want it right now. And I get it, right? Present value of money always says that money today is worth more today than it is in the future. But that's the whole point, right? The whole point is that if you know money in the future is not going to be worth as much, you might as well get something that's going to actually store your value against that money. Right? Like, why would you get something that even in terms of once you buy it, it loses value in that same money? So not only you basically compounding your losses, because the thing that you bought is losing value in that money, and that money's losing value as well. So you compounded your losses by buying something that doesn't protect your purchasing power. Most people don't have a long enough view for that, man, a long-term view for that to even, make that work for them.
Yeah, and it's not just, I mean, we don't want to just be going at, regular, normal people. There's people in the stock market that feel the same way. They have no long-term sights, all short-term gain. They really mess it up for their clients or for themselves.
Right.
It's all about immediate need. And I think that's an interesting thing about human brain wiring, right? It's like, I'm sure you've talked to someone before and you've given this wonderful words and speeches, and your expertise is great about Bitcoin. And they've looked at you and just said, no, I don't get it. No. So, and it's like, I was watching Bill Maher. I like watching real time with Bill Maher because he has a lot of different guests. And he has just been really on the attack against Bitcoin and crypto. He's been like, this is a millennial fraud. There's a Ponzi scheme, all those kinds of things. And I just feel like, do you think we really need more people like you in the industry really promoting Bitcoin in a way that really goes, tit for tat with people kind of going at it? Or do you think it could just speak for itself?
Okay, number one, it speaks for itself. And I'll tell you why I believe that. And the reason why we don't need to be more me, because the rich people might start waking up to it.
Okay, right.
Right? And what I mean by that is it'll make it a lot more difficult for the people that I'm trying to get out of the situation they're in.
Right.
So as long as we quiet and we reach into the right community, and those people are out able to front run those people that are sitting at the top that are looking at like, oh, this is nothing.
Right.
I literally use the analogy of the Titanic, right? People down in the lower levels of the Titanic knew the Titanic was actually sinking. Why? Because the water was hitting them, because they are in the lower realms of society, so to speak, if you use that analogy. So they're the closest to the problem. The people in Argentina who know that their money is worthless for the most part, and it continues to fluctuate. People in Nigeria who their government has freaking like debased their currency to a point where they have to go use Bitcoin. Those people are the people at the bottom of the ship. They're the closest to the problem. They're the closest to the leak in the ship, right? They know the ship is going down. So they are running as fast as they can to the deck where the lifeboats are, and they jumping on this orange lifeboat called Bitcoin, right? The people at the top of the deck are still just dancing while the ship's going down because they have no clue. There's no water there. They just know that they felt a hit, and it was like, oh, well, it's nothing. You know why? Because we at the top. We don't. This stuff is not affecting us directly, and so they wind up not realizing that they need to get on the lifeboat, and they're the closest to it because they have the most value right now. They could exchange a lot of their value over into Bitcoin and push the price up crazy to where nobody else could actually get on the lifeboat. You see what I'm saying? There'll be fewer seats on the lifeboat because there's only 21 million. Right. So my thing is like, hey, everybody downstairs, it's the Harriet Tubman, right? I know the lifeboats are. Everybody down here in these low cabins, come on, let's go. It's time to get on the lifeboat. Y'all see what's going on. Let's go. Run as fast as you can. Get as many seats as you possibly can in the lifeboat so you can save yourself, right? That's how I feel about this. The people at the top, of course, they're not going to get it. They got $30 million mansions, private jets.
Bill Maher's already a rich guy.
Yeah, he's already rich. He's not going to get it. What's his name? Charlie Munger. He's going to tell you it's rat poison. Warren Buffett's going to tell you this is awful. This doesn't make any sense.
Peter Schiff.
He's going to right. And I debated Peter. I debated Peter on Clubhouse one time.
Okay.
You got to catch that. It's somewhere on YouTube. But but it's like the whole thing is like all of those guys, they're at the top levels. They've been up there. They eating off the fat. They got the pig, and they got the roasted pig with the apple in the mouth, and everybody's happy. People at the bottom are realizing that water's coming in a lot faster than it should be, and they are realizing that there needs to be a way out of this boat, right? And that's all around the globe. That boat is fiat currency. All around the globe, we need an exit strategy for fiat, and I think that's why Bitcoin is so Bitcoin is so huge. But that's also why the people at the top of the boat, they're like, "What are you talking about? The music's still playing." Right? Until it's not
safe. Until it's not. Until it's not. Until Russia comes in.
Now all of a sudden here comes the water. Yeah, here comes the water. And they're like, then everybody's running. And then but guess what happens? All of a sudden, that seat on that lifeboat costs a lot more.
Yeah.
But guess who's on it? That's why I'm trying to get everybody on it.
Right.
Who at the bottom, right? The marginalized people, the poor people, the black people, right? Like the women, like, run as fast as you can because you're already marginalized, and this is a great equalizer.
Right. There's no country, there's no empire country that survived without a middle class, without a striving middle class. And this is the way we can, in my opinion, not to sound too biased, I know I'm the host, but I'm just gonna put it out there. I would have bet this is something I like to do for a living. Like I think this is how we can rebuild the middle class, because the way the middle class has been cut down is by taxes and globalization, right? A lot of jobs get offshored. Those good jobs that were in Detroit, right? And like Kentucky and other places that were automobile or whatnot, they're no longer there. The industry has moved. So if we're not going to regulate and help capitalism be successful without corporatism ruining it all, then what we need to do is build a middle class. And this is a way to do it.
You know, it's so funny. I think that the thing that you said that I don't agree with is just the regulate part. And the reason why I don't agree with it is because I think if they just let us be free.
Did I say we should regulate? Is that what
you said? Yeah, you think we should regulate? Yeah.
I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that.
My thing is that I think sometimes like they wind up regulating out the marginalized. Like if you think about like accredited investor and non-accredited investor guidelines, Matter of fact, they ain't guidelines, they laws, and they've kind of tried to fix it a little bit, but they still put limits on people who are not quote unquote an accredited investor. That is, to me, a great rights infraction. That is literally they are literally attacking your rights to be able to make money. Your capitalistic rights, let's call it that. Right? You should have a right to risk whatever money you have on whatever you want to risk.
It's in the Constitution, pursuit of happiness.
Right. Exactly. That right there, you should be able to risk it. But guess what? If you don't have a certain amount of money, you're not allowed to risk it on early stage startups.
Right.
You can take
Angel investing.
You can take your entire paycheck and go to to the gas station, to the hood store, and get as many scratch offs as you want. No limits. You can take your entire paycheck, take all of it, and say, give me 500 scratch offs. But if I take $500 and even just want to put it in a daycare down the street, the daycare down the street could get in trouble for taking my money.
Wow. Yeah.
Think how crazy that is.
That's crazy.
That is so.
That's overregulation. Overregulated.
Yes, but the thing is, you got to realize most of this regulation is put into place by the people that already have the power, because they recognize that if you start to dilute the power base, then that means they lose their power. That's what I'm saying. Fiat currencies and everything that we live in right now is about people being in power over you. And it's not about like we were talking about earlier with decentralization. It empowers each person. Equally. If you want to participate in the Bitcoin network, you can equally get a node just like everybody else and participate in the Bitcoin network, right? Now, does that mean that you're going to have just many Bitcoin as everyone else? No, that definitely doesn't mean that. But it gives you an opportunity to access without having to ask anybody anything.
Right.
You just do it, right?
Right.
That's a far cry from everything we've ever seen in the history of this country, especially, right? And all around the globe. The people that are in power create rules and regulations to keep themselves in power. And so you have accredited investor laws. You have all these regulations that keep people out of the drug game, out of, big pharma. What they create, they allow government to create moats for them. There's a regulatory moat because once they get to a certain point, then they pay the government a whole lot of money to keep everybody from getting into their realm. Right. That's what happens, right? So it's like that's why I gel way more with Bitcoin and decentralized protocols, right? Because it's just, to me, that's where we should be headed. Decentralization is the thing. Like if we decentralize the water, we decentralize the means of electricity, if we decentralize all the things, right? We start to realize that it empowers individuals. You know what I'm saying?
That's what capitalism initially, if you read Adam Smith, that's what he wanted. He said, you have to make sure things stay competitive. Right, you're not actually going to have an innocent market all the time where people are not going to collude and they're not going to try to game the system. When that happens, you're going to have to do things to make it. You're going to have new challenges. You're going to have to come up with new innovations to help capitalism stay what it really should be for people. Because with the wealth it's generated, it has been somewhat of an equalizer in a lot of places. And I feel, my friend asked me, my friend was very excited that you were coming on. And he said, are we going to have an Internet Explorer moment? Are we going to have a moment, and maybe it's not a good thing, where access to this and the education about this becomes so simple that it's just like, you just go on your computer, just sign on, right? If you remember the internet before, when it was Netscape and Net Zero and all that stuff, it was difficult. It was crazy, right? Yeah. But do you think we need that Internet Explorer moment?
Yeah, I mean, we have it. Internet Explorer just provides you access, right? Yeah. There are companies like Start9, Get Umbral that allow you to get a node if you want to run a node. But more than that, I think browsers to me are the wallets. Okay. Like Bitcoin wallets are the actual browsers. They are in that spot. You get what I'm saying? I think those are the powerful parts of it all. It's like if we look out further into time, because what do browsers do? What do wallets do? They look at the blockchain and see what the balance is. And if you look at like Bitcoin, if they look for UTXOs to make sure that whatever UTXOs you have, that's your balance of your wallet. They perusing the dang on chain to make sure you see what you have. And then they allow you to transact and send information to somebody else, right? You sign it.
Right, like an email. Exactly.
So I think we already are there. We're already at it's so easy to actually do this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like it really is if you really want to do it. But just think the only problem we have is the GUIs might not be as simple. Because email, right? SMTP, when that protocol came around, like it's not the easiest for you to run your own server for email, and most people don't. And I think we'll just keep running into situations where we'll have more consolidation of people who are custodians, because that's just humans just want custodians. I try to push people to be non-custodial and to hold your own funds and control your own keys. But we already know that humans, if they can set it and forget it and blame somebody else, then that's what they rather do.
So when you say a custodian, what is that?
Yeah, like custodial wallets like Coinbase.
Okay.
Or all of these exchanges, like even the Cash App. Most people are not going to take their coins off of the Cash App and put it in their own cold storage. We teach that at Black Bitcoin Billionaires because we understand that's the true freedom of it. It's to control your own money. But most people aren't going to hear that message, right? Most people are just going to keep it there, and they'll be able to transact in Bitcoin all over the globe. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But that don't mean that they're going to like, it's like right now, do you run your own email server?
No.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Think about how powerful that is to run your own email server.
Right.
When you don't run your own email server, you risk the fact that these companies now have access to all your emails and they reading them, and the bot is reading them and then sending you advertisements based on what they just saw in your email.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember I was in with my grandfather. I was in his Toyota RAV4. I didn't type RAV4. I didn't go on my phone the whole time I'm with him. I'm just in a RAV4. I leave my grandfather after taking him to breakfast. I get ads for Toyota RAV4s on my Instagram, my Facebook, and everywhere. I'm like, they're following us in a way that we don't even know. Yeah.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. So the question is like, a lot of us have given up a lot of that. We don't care. It's like advertise, send me a picture of a RAV4. It doesn't matter. The problem is when that gets into your money, that's different because they can sanction you. They can cut you off from your money, right? They can tell you I can't send money to Justin anymore, even though me and Justin have had a business relationship for 30 years. Yeah. Right? Like that kind of stuff is extremely scary because that is the thing that oils what you're trying to do. That's how you're able to eat and get food and get food and pay bills and all of this other stuff. And if they could just look at what you're doing, watch your activity on a consistent basis and cut you off. Yeah. That's a problem, right? Right. And we've seen what custodians, like you saw what happened with MetaMask in Venezuela, didn't you?
Yes.
Right? You saw what happened with the Russian accounts at Coinbase. Right. Russia, they shut down 25,000. Like that's what happens with custodial places. Somebody comes give a tap on the shoulder and they're like, okay, I got you. Like, right? The government's like, hey, cut them off. I got you. Right, that's scary, man. That's extremely scary.
So where should people put their money if they have Bitcoin? If it's not custodial?
I mean, you got to get to the point where you start understanding multi-sig. I used to say just pure cold storage, but I think multi-sig, like a mixture of using cold storage for multi-sig is probably the best way to go. Because you don't have a single point of failure in that, and you still have to have something that is not connected to the internet to actually sign the transactions, which is a really good thing, right? It shuts down the number of attack vectors, and for most people, that's fine. So I think you start learning more about cold storage. That could be the first hop when you learn that. You learn how to get onto a ledger or a Trezor or a cold card. And then the next step is, okay, how do I make this multi-sig? Because now I got so much Bitcoin, it's worth so much. I want to make sure I protect it for my generation. So I move over to multi-sig. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the next event, the next avenue where a lot of lawyers are going to get involved is how do I transfer when I die or in my will? How do I transfer my crypto that way? Because how do you keep it decentralized, but yet keep it somewhat transferable through a will, which usually takes a bank. Right. It's an interesting conversation, you know. It's something we're going to have to figure out eventually, you know. So as we approach the end here, I want to know. My mother, I keep trying to get her to invest, and I finally got her to invest in Bitcoin and some other cryptos that I thought could project well. And she says, well, two things. She says, well, like, with this technology that you have, how do I predict, right? How do I assess the market? It always seems so volatile. You know, so many people say it's so volatile, right? Do you see that volatility eventually coming to an end as adoption keeps getting bigger? Or do you think that there's a better perspective we can have on volatility?
I think as more and more countries adopt it as legal tender, that it's going to help. because it gets us to 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. So there won't be anything. There's no volatility if you're not trading against something else.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like when the only volatility that will come will be when you're trading against a basket of goods, like the dollar, right? Mm-hmm. Like most people don't feel the volatility in the dollar, but there definitely is. It's called inflation or deflation, right?
Right.
Like there is volatility in the dollar. The fact that I can't use the same amount of dollars today for something in the marketplace that I used the other day. And when Bitcoin gets to that point, then there'll still be volatility, but you won't feel it. You'll just be doing like everybody else and saying, oh man, the hamburger was far more expensive today. Not realizing that your Bitcoin just dropped in value, right?
Right.
People don't think about it. People don't go, oh, dollars are so volatile. Nobody says that.
Nobody says, but it is.
Even when they go in the grocery store and see the prices of stuff on a consistent basis,
they're not making that connection.
They're not making the connection because what they do is they're saying, think about it. It's what's so funny is that the thing that they went and bought at the grocery store the one day and it costs more the next day, it's still the same thing. Mm-hmm. So something changed.
Right. That should be an epiphany about value, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing.
It's the same exact thing, but something changed. Like that same pound of hamburger yesterday cost $5. Now it costs $5.55. What changed? The hamburger is exactly the same. Matter of fact, when you came in there the other day, it was the same package still sitting there. It just was a new day, right? So what changed? The only thing that can change in that equation, if you know math, if this hasn't changed, this is all the same. This over here must be changing, and that's that dollar. The worth of the dollar is against this is what's changing, right? There's an exchange rate, and the exchange between this thing that has not changed. And people say, well, Lamar, the dollar did not change. Well, the whole point is that dollars, right? They're fungible. They're like these things. They're all the same, but they have not changed. But this thing right here is what you're trying to buy. So if these things are going up and down, is it the meat that changed? Because the meat is still the same value. You're going to eat it, and you're going to get the nutrients from it, the whole thing. This dollar, what nutrients is that giving you? This is just a medium of exchange, a unit of account. So this must be changing in value, right?
Right.
That's what people have to understand, and most people don't get it to that level. And so that's what we try to teach all the time, man, is to teach people about what money really is, the medium of exchange, the unit of account, right? The store of value, those kind of things. And if your money is not storing your value, is it really good money? Mm-hmm. That's the question.
Right.
Those dollars, if that hamburger keeps getting more and more expensive, that dollar is not storing your value. You better off just getting the hamburger and putting it in your freezer and keep it. You know what I'm saying? Go buy a whole bunch of it when it's cheap and keeping it. So,
All right, audience. Well, I want to thank my guest, Big Marh, Lamar Wilson. This has just been a great conversation. I think anybody who's listening to this is definitely going to be more knowledgeable about Bitcoin and the process, and also less afraid. I mean, just hearing a conversation about it, I think is giving you the tools. You can follow Lamar Wilson. You can follow me. I mean, we talk about this stuff all the time consistently. So remember, you can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are found. That's Google, Spotify, Apple. Please share, like, subscribe. Hit me up on Twitter anywhere you want. Lamar, I got to say, where can we find you next? What's the future of Black Bitcoin Billionaire?
Man, so we started Black Bitcoin Billionaire just as a way to educate folks. I think the future of it is going to be more of a media company. I think it'll be more of a media company and a club with memberships, right? I think we're seeing how it's pushing itself out. We are actually tapping into something that a lot of people didn't think we could tap into. And we have the biggest club on all of Clubhouse around cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, whether it's Black, white, Asian, whatever, it doesn't matter. We have the largest club. So it lets us see that there's a lot of value in what we do and what we bring. And so we want to make sure we continue to add that value to the world. So I'm very pleased with all of our mods, all the supporters and sponsors that have helped us over this year and a half, a year and some months now. So yeah, man, this is just the future is really, really bright for Black Bitcoin Billionaire, man. We got merch, we got all kinds of stuff.
Oh, merch, okay.
So yeah, just fun stuff like that. And then you can find me at Big Marh, BIGMARH everywhere. So
yes, sir. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Really, really been a pleasure. But again, remember, I'll say this last word to the audience, that when we consider leveling the playing field, we always have to find new avenues and be creative. There's no reason not to educate yourself. Even if you never become an investor, educate yourself on it and be open-minded to new opportunities. All right. So for me, that's it. Thank you, Big Marh. And I will see you guys around. Remember, we're better when we trend together.